Thank you for attending this breakout session. This session is filled with powerful information to help improve your health and empower you. Radio Free 102.3 KJLH. We are you.
Beyonce, Serena Williams, two of the most powerful women in their respective fields and beyond. But as much money, fame, and access as these two women have, they also have something in common with us average women: maternal treatment, their infants' health care, and they both have survived potentially fatal pregnancy complications. Well, this topic is so widespread that President Joe Biden has addressed the disparity in Black women's maternal care just recently. Welcome to the KJLH's 21st Women's Health Expo 2021, where we go deep into Black infant healthcare and maternal healthcare with questions, answers, and solutions. Because y'all know how I roll. I'm Tammy Mack, host of the Tammy Mack Show from 3 to 7 p.m. on 102.3 KJLH. And I thank you for riding with me every weekday. But this ride we are about to take is a journey of resolution with Black infant health. The Black Infant Health Program was created in 1989 to address the high rate of infant mortality for African American families. Now, at that time, the infant mortality rate was 19.2 infant deaths for every 1,000 live births. And despite a decline in African American infant mortality, our babies continue to die at more than 3 times the rate of other racial and ethnic groups. Do I need to repeat that? I think I better. Our babies continue to die at more than 3 times the rate of other racial ethnic groups. Preterm births and low birth weight are highest for Black African American women. Well, today we talk about the benefits of the Black Infant Health Program. So please welcome our panelist, Gwendolyn Manning, Program Coordinator for the City of Long Beach Black Infant Health Program. Hi, Gwen.
Hello.
Angie Dixon-Hamlet, licensed clinical social worker and mental health professional with the Black Infant Health Program in Long Beach. Hi there, Angie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Lydia James is a mother who has experienced Black Infant Health Program support for Black women. Hi, Lydia.
Hi there.
And we know and love her from so many movies and television shows, but were you aware that she too has had to deal with childbirth trauma from hospital care? Please welcome actress and producer, Tatiana Ali. Hi, Tatiana. Oh, we got a little mute going there. That's all right. It's all good.
Oh, yes, we do. Hi, everybody.
Hello. So the first thing, Gwendolyn, I want to ask is, what are some of the factors that contribute to low birth weight? But maybe before we even get into that, what is Black infant and mortality care? Why does this even exist? Why are we talking about it today in 2021? What does it mean to the average person?
Sure. So what most people do not know and do not have an understanding of is that Black women suffer a disparity that's almost quiet, and it's a disparity around giving birth to children, something that seems like it should be as normal as it is for anyone else. But with Black women, research shows, and not only that, but we that live the experience of being Black women know that Black women are at risk for being anywhere from 2 to 3 times more likely to suffer pregnancy complications and even death than any other group. And the same thing applies to her infant. A Black woman, a Black baby, and a Black infant is more likely to be 2 to 3 times more likely to die before the first year of life as a result of just being a Black infant. In the state of California, well, we know that a lot of factors, are involved in trying to determine why, but the number one factor that we focus on is the fact that Black women suffer from something called chronic stress. And that's not something that's easily explained, but if I were to try to, in a synopsis, give you the example of why that is, it's because we can trace our historic roots back to the type of stress that was involved in the history of Black people in America. that has never been reconciled. And when we think of why women in the Black community have stress, it's because we as a culture have never been affirmed in this society. And when you don't have affirmation, you really tend to live your life around just certain feelings and certain fears around what can possibly happen to you or your child, how you will be treated, what are the ways that we show up in our spaces in the world, how we're looked at, how we're being made to feel. Over a period of time, that type of stressor can really develop in a person and turn into something that looks like on the outside as if a person is coping, but on the inside, that person is not coping very well at all. Or more, even a better way to explain it would be, if you have a Black woman that's giving birth to a child prematurely that had the picture of health, there has to be an explanation as to why that happened. And that hidden stress, that unknown stress, is related to social determinants. It's related to racial determinants. And that is prevalent even among women that are successful in life, if they're
Angie,
Black.
I want to talk to you about this chronic stress that Gwen is mentioning. What does that have to do with our mental health? And is there some way that our mental health can contribute to this chronic stress, or does the chronic stress itself contribute to our mental health?
Well, thank you. It's a little bit of both. We know that simply stated, stress is the wear and tear of everyday life. And when your everyday life is colored by racism and by chronic stress, as Gwen was mentioning, it just impacts everything about you, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, and your spirit, your soul. And so we know that it's so important, to recognize the role that stress plays. We had a component in the Black Infant Health Program called Destined for Greatness. And it was a 6-week course that really focused on talking about and getting our ladies to talk about their stress levels and how they're coping and what they're doing. And we know there's also a component of weathering, how continuous stress just wears and weakens our ability to fully respond to things like fight and flight and freeze. And so we know that we're suffering physically with different kinds of diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes. We know that we're suffering from emotional and mental trauma that's replayed over and over again. And, there's clearly so many examples of that right now.
Right.
And so it's a wound that really never heals. So that's why we know that it's so important to address stress in the Black Infant Health Program. And we do it continuously through our curriculum, through talking to our ladies one-on-one, because we want them to understand, that they don't have to suffer alone, that they now have us. And we're going to work with them and journey with them to make sure that they feel uplifted and they get to talk about, what kinds of things that they're dealing with, especially, moms that really talk about a lot of their children leaving the home just for an everyday activity and what that will look like, and the stress that it puts on them because of that. And so it's a really rich opportunity in Black infant health to talk about, as some of the ladies tell us, something that they've never really been asked about. And so we really get a good conversation going.
Wow. Tatiana, look, we have to go here with you, because when the ladies talk about chronic stress and weathering, and that these are factors when it comes to being pregnant and having a child, obviously just being pregnant and having a child is enough stress in itself, right? But when the average person looks at someone like you, who's a celebrity, probably not, have the greatest of health care, and we're thinking that you're in the greatest of circumstance, How does stress play a part in your life, and how do you end up in a situation where your childbirth experience is not the best?
Yeah, my childbirth experience wasn't the best. I was also it resulted in an emergency C-section and in my son having to spend several days in the NICU because of the traumatic nature of his birth, our our birth in a way, because it started me on this work. I one of the things that I'm learning, as you know, Tammy, I'm working on a documentary to share all the things that I've learned. I have two babies now. My experience was with my first baby. I had a very different experience with my second baby because of everything that I learned. And 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 I one of the things that I have learned is that, socioeconomics in this, look, it should never matter. Any woman, any person should be able to walk into a space and receive proper care, be listened to, be heard, be asked questions, be given choices, and have the right to make those choices for herself. That is absolutely across the board. But what I've learned is that, research is showing that those things that usually matter in our society, what school you went to, what your economic level is, none of those things matter. If you think about it, when you're in the hospital or you're in those spaces, you're stripped down. I don't have my special bag that shows people who I am or what, and I'm not speaking however I need to speak, in spaces to be treated a certain way, to make sure that the waiter really looks after me and things like, no, like I am here to birth a baby, and we're stripped down at that point, and none of those things matter. Like I said, they should never matter, but none of those things matter. And so the bias is across the board. What matters is that you're a Black woman is what it's showing. And what I do, try to bring to spaces too is the thing that I know how to do, or that I've been doing for a long time since I was a little girl, is telling stories. And I've come across this concept of weathering, and where it really gets down to the detail of even what happens in placenta when we're under such stress, and different individuals in our community, Black women, my sisters, who have more than me, who have less than me in economically or whatever. We're experiencing these stressors, but I want to make sure that we know that it's not our fault that we're experiencing these stresses. It's a normal human response to what the society, where it has placed us, how it treats us, how individuals who are supposed to care for us treat us. In my birthing room, I had 10 people screaming at me. I had a doctor put his elbow in my stomach, trying to squeeze my baby out like I was a toothpaste bottle. It was a horrific scene. We were treated terribly. And so of course, there was stress because no one's answering a question. No one's sharing information. I've heard stories of women being told that they're seeking pain medication because they say they're in pain. Meanwhile, I have 2 cracked ribs and nobody bothered to check. All of these things, child services being called in right after you give birth because they look at you and your partner, they look at your family and they go, I don't like what this looks like. I mean, there are horrific things being done. So that stress is a natural human response to what is happening around us. It's not something that's, it's not something that, we're born with, that there's something in our bodies that makes that,
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think that's important to remember.
Very important to make. Gwen talked about how systemic racism and the traumas of, Gwen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing you say the traumas of even slavery are what affect what's going on with us today. And so I want to ask you, Tatiana, because you've done this documentary, and in the documentary, you shared with me that the reason why this is happening is solely because these women are Black. Is that true?
From what I've been learning, yes, I've been more learning about the bias that occurs in hospitals, that the bias that occurs with doctors. The belief that we don't experience pain in the same way. And when you talk about our history of slavery, you go back to the so-called father of gynecology, J. Marion Sims, and the women that he experimented on, Anarcha, Lucy, Betsy, these three women who were slaves, who endured incredible operations with no anesthesia, 18, 19, 12 times, 10 times, again and again throughout their lives. That is the person who came up with the speculum. Or you know what I mean? That's the person who came up with a lot of the gynecological procedures that we use to this day.
I have always thought that with the advent of what's happening today in technology, that there's got to be a better way to go inside of a woman outside of that speculum. There's got to be, right? Like there's got to be a better way to go inside of us and check for cancer or lumps or whatever it is, diseases. Lydia, I know that your experience has been quite the pleasant one because the Black Infant Health Program helped you along the way. What is it that they do that made your experience so different than Tatiana's first experience, you think?
We talked about everything under the sun, things that I hadn't even imagined that I would experience through pregnancy, through childbirth, through motherhood. We talked about. Like,
what's one thing you wouldn't have imagined?
I wouldn't have imagined that I would be kind of coursed into a birth plan that I wasn't safe with, that I wasn't aware about, that I wasn't comfortable with at all. And that's exactly what happened in my pregnancy.
Wow. Okay, so let me straighten this out for everybody to understand. Okay, so the Black Infant Health Program shared with you that you may be coaxed into a birth plan that you would be against.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So when you went into the hospital, they coaxed you into a birth plan that you were against. But because you already knew that, because the Black Infant Health Program shared that with you, you were able to then what?
Prepare. I was prepared. I have my support system with me. I had my voice with me. It helped me bring my voice, my baby father's voice, my doula's voice. Just being aware is it's comforting, and they helped me be aware.
I want to ask you this: when you talk about a doula, and that's a whole nother subject, but when you talk about a doula, who provided you with your doula?
Black Infant Health gave a lot of insight on, things that you can do to prepare for your birth. And I just so happened to have one in my family. My mother-in-law was my doula. So I was able to experience that with her, with my mother, just being supported. Women who've went through it, women who know the ins and outs of your body during childbirth and what you should expect during childbirth through your labor. That was a blessing.
So Gwendolyn, I want to ask you this because a doula is a great it's a great addition in the help when you're having a baby. But what happens when the hospital chooses your doula, or the doula is in cahoots with the hospital? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, well, with our program, we really do try to focus on connecting women with doulas that are culturally sensitive, that are Black, that understand their experiences. We want to typically make sure that every doula that we connect women to has some formal obstetric training. They've been provided with the guidance and support that's necessary to help not only pregnant women during labor, but a Black pregnant woman, because they understand some of the challenges and some of the obstacles that as a Black woman you're facing just with the medical system, many times with the medical system. And I think Tatiana spoke to it so eloquently. We are faced with issues that seem almost impossible to wrap your mind around. Like, you have to almost make them see you as human in some cases as Black women versus white women. Like, we do experience pain, we do have complications. So when we think of doulas, we don't try to connect women with, I mean, we have the selection ability to work with the doulas that we like to work with. One of the things that we're trying to do locally in Long Beach is we're trying to educate our hospitals. We're trying to educate our providers about the importance of and the relativity of working with doulas that will be, working with the Black community, Black women, to ensure that they are employing or connecting with those types of doulas. So yes, it's very important that Black women are connected to doulas. And it doesn't mean they have to be Black, but they should have some cultural connectedness to the issues and the dilemmas that Black women face, particularly during pregnancy.
Tatiana, you did have a doula, didn't you?
I did. I had the way you said, a very hospital-friendly doula who actually at a certain point had told me that, and I didn't, like, I heard it, but I didn't really hear it, and Lydia, I'm hearing you say that, like, I feel like, it's almost like they helped you find your voice, that they told you that your voice was worth listening to, that traditionally, which is the route that I kind of went, this traditional OBGYN route. And I knew I was supposed to have, or people were talking about doula. So I was like, oh, what's that? I didn't know what to look for. And there was a point where my doula actually told me that, highly educated women don't do well in childbirth. Like, she had it, but it's very interesting because it was like a different type of bias that she was kind of putting on me. Wow. And so she was kind of number one in line of really kind of trying to convince me to do these interventions that was not in the birth plan that I had come up with. And, like waking me up to say, take this epidural because it'll help you sleep. And it was like, but I'm asleep now. Why did you wake me up? I'm in the tub. What's going on? And so yeah, that empowerment, like knowing what to look for when you are seeking looking for your team and putting your support team together, what to look for, what feels right to you, that what feels right to you is probably what's right, knowing that you have a knowing. That's, I think, I remember my OBGYN, when I asked about different positions, he told me, he said, you can hang from the ceilings if you want. So very dismissive. And yeah. I remember that as loud as day, and I still didn't walk out of the room. I thought, oh, he knows he's a doctor, and, I guess he's going to give birth for me. I don't like, it's just a complete yeah. paradigm shift that also has to take place besides the institutional stuff and the structural stuff, of just really, I feel like as women, as Black women, especially, that intuition is the most powerful gift that we have. Yeah. And when trying to subdue us or our people or our communities, then that's the first thing that people try to take away in the most insidious kind of, tiny, minute ways. They try to take away that voice. So yeah. I'm hearing your story, Lydia, is really like brought tears to my eyes. I'm just very happy for you.
Thank you. Family. That's interesting that she talked about your voice, because I know when you and I talked, you mentioned how once you get into that hospital, it's like you have no voice. And to hear Lydia say, I had a voice is like so it's like, whew, okay, so there is a way, there is help. Angie, how does the mental health of a woman, a mother, how does, like, I'm listening to Tatiana's story versus Lydia's story. And so how does the mental health post mental health play a part in this childbirth, giving the different situations that we had here?
It plays such a huge role. And we actually start before, during prenatal, and we talk about some of the things that you might experience postpartum. And I'm so glad to hear about Lydia's experience of finding her voice, because that is our goal. We want them to feel welcomed and loved. This is a program, by us, for us. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for women to talk about what's going on with them and to really support them during a very difficult time. We talk about that you're not alone and you don't have to go through this alone, because guess what? You're part of our family now. And that seems so surprising to some of the women. When we used to have more things happening in person, we would give hugs and do all that kind of physical touching that we know is important. So we've had to learn how to modify it. So we, over the phone and during Zoom calls, we let them know you're part of our family. You have an extended family now. And so, especially postpartum, we want you to know that we're still here for you. This is really just the beginning of your journey. And now you'll be putting some of the things you learned in prenatal into your postpartum experience. And we want to be here for you. There's no judgment and there's no shame in reaching out. We really try to diffuse some of the myths about, a strong person doesn't ask for help, and, we don't do counseling, and Black women can't get along for more than a minute. We really have changed a lot of that in our groups, because there's so much valuing and letting people know that you're heard, that you're important, and that we care about you, and you're stuck with us. We're your family forever. And so, whenever something comes up, please feel free to reach out to us, and we love them.
And I think that we Black women, we kind of take ownership of that whole "I'm a strong Black woman" thing. And we do believe that if we ask for help, it's making us a little weaker than we should be as a Black woman who's who's the caretaker of an entire family. So I think it's good to know that there are times you can be weak, you can let it go, you can be emotional, you can let loose of those heavy weights that you are lifting the world over your head with. You can. So it's nice to have that space. I heard Lydia talk about the father of her child and how he too was included in the childbirth situation here, in childbirth. And I want to know, what does Black Infant Health Program do to include the father? Because I find that so refreshing to know that a father is included in childbirth when so many times they're kind of cast to the side. Gwendolyn?
So yeah, I'm glad to jump in here. So one of the things about Black infant health is that we encourage the incorporation of the entire family in every aspect of this woman's birth experience, her pregnancy, throughout her postpartum experience. And so the state, this is a state program, and we are restricted because of confidentiality reasons, that when we host our group sessions, no one is allowed in that space. But outside of the space of group, we encourage fathers to we encourage them to participate in every aspect of the program. We have workshops that happen outside of the regularly scheduled group sessions that we encourage dads to come. So they can come for things like, car seat safety classes. They can come for whenever we do like baby showers or any events outside of group. We encourage the dads to be there. In Long Beach, we actually have a program that kind of works alongside our Black Infant Health Program. It's a program for fathers. Not every BIH program has this around the state, but where there are fatherhood type programs, we encourage all of the BIH programs to get connected to those. So we can actually make that referral over to that program while the mom is here getting services and support from Black Infant Health. We want to make sure the dads are connected. One other thing I want to just say about fathers is that we, as much love and support and care as we give to moms, we try to pour that onto the dads whenever they are coming into contact with us as a team. Whether that's them dropping a mom off for a group session or picking her up, we acknowledge them, we see them, we make sure that we know that we view them as a part of the entire experience that these women are having when they're in our program. So we love our Black fathers.
Yes. Lydia, you keep shaking your head, Lydia, like, yeah.
Yes,
So I I want you to talk about that experience then.
Oh my goodness. We weren't able to have a physical session. Everything was on Zoom, but just that acknowledgement of him, like he's in the picture, he's gonna be there, whether he wants to or not. He is involved inside of this personal space, and just having those conversations with my group and how I should acknowledge certain feelings to him and how I want to have conversations go in the hospital and what we should look out for. Just a part of our women's, prenatal group, just talking about that and hearing other mothers going through the same thing, hearing other Black women going through the same thing, like, hey, how do I get him more involved? Or how do I, do this? How do I make him feel what I'm feeling? How do I start those conversations? They have been a part of it every step of the way. And they even have outreach programs for fathers, and it was just a blessing to hear that. Just, hey, we hear your voice too, your voice also matters. Let me guide you into showing you that you are a part of this beautiful thing. You may not be the star, but you are a part of it. The baby's always a star. They always come first. They always come first. So just that acknowledgement and that acceptance was more than I could ever ask for.
Right. You making me want to have a baby.
I know. Can I just say something that's on my heart after listening to you, Lydia, and just being a part of this? And what you said before, Tammy Mack, about kind of like this myth of Black womanhood, like, we can do it all and on our own, and it's we could do a lot, but
right.
But this need for community, this need for community is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength. It's our ability to create it, under any circumstances whatsoever is our greatest strength. And so for anybody who's listening or watching this or whatever, and you feel like alone, reach out to this organization, get on your computer, figure out where, because it makes all the difference in ways that you can't even imagine, to just be able to walk with others, on your own journey. It's the point of it. And I think our society as a whole just makes us believe that we're supposed to do it by ourselves, and we make our own little money and then we put it in the bank and we live in our own little house. We don't know our neighbors, don't say hi. Something might, there might be something scary. No, that's not how it really works. And that's not how our communities and our families thrive.
Yeah. We hear about the discussions that are in some of the group sessions, and either of you can talk about these group sessions. Angie, I know that you have discussions about Black history and racism. One would wonder, what the heck does that have to do with giving birth?
We talk about it all, and we encourage our ladies to share their perspectives. Many of them say, I've never had a chance to really learn some of this or even to talk about this. And so we have 10 different topics that we cover in prenatal as well as in postpartum, and they range from Black history to talking about communication and stress reduction. And then we have 10 more sessions in postpartum. So we talk about everything. Nothing is really off the table. And if they need to talk one-on-one, we also can give them that opportunity with, a mental health professional if they really want to go into maybe something maybe more confidential or just maybe more private. But we love the discussions. They are rich, they are funny, they are serious, they bring tears. But most importantly, it's a voice. And that's how I think many of our ladies find their voice, because it starts right there, where their opinion, their perspective, their questions are not judged, and they realize that they matter. And that is so important.
Tatiana,
Yeah.
you're working on a documentary right now, and I can imagine that the reason why this is one of your platforms is because of the personal experience that you've had in childbirth. But you've had a good experience and a bad experience, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what were the differences? I mean, what made one? Why do you think one was better than the other?
Well, my after Asi's birth, I actually started to reach out to community in my postpartum journey with breastfeeding. You know, all the women in my family were told that they didn't have enough milk. My aunts, my mom, my grandmother, and you know, were pushed
Gwendolyn's shaking
formula.
her head. Is that common, Gwendolyn? Is that common?
We have definitely heard it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
they all were pushed formula after a very short period of time, and I really wanted to breastfeed up to 2 years, and I did with my first baby. I'm on my way with my second baby, but I didn't have a support, that's family support inside, because no one else had experienced it. Sometimes they were even like, "You still breastfeeding that baby?" Yes, because the WHO says 2 years old. That was I had a little mantra. So I started reaching out through social media, pictures, sharing pictures, and the community reached back. I ended up, when I found out I was pregnant with Alejandro, my husband, and I were like, that was the thing that we were terrified. How are we going to give? How are we going to do this again? We cannot go through this. I was terrified of the hospital. I searched for a long time and found a midwife. I found a Black midwife who's actually based in Long Beach. And oh my gosh, she listened to me. She spent time with our family. She asked me every time, excuse me, I'm sorry. I talk a lot, and I usually don't, but you guys are all very beautiful women. So thank you for allowing me a space where my heart can just really be open. But she asked me every time she touched my belly, can I touch? She asked for permission.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
every time. And it's a good story because we planned a home birth. We had the tub, we do it all right. And then Alejandro went sideways. He went transverse. But when you plan a home birth, there's so much planning. What's the hospital in case of emergency? So we had planned on a hospital that was midwife friendly, and my midwife was able to be there. My mom was there. My dad was there. My husband was right there. And I went, they told me when they said, you're going to go numb from here down. I had my outburst. It was like kind of like a reliving of what had happened.
Right.
And my midwife prayed over me. She held my feet. I didn't hear her do it out loud, but I knew that that's what she was doing. And I knew she did it because we had gotten to know each other enough. So she knew my heart, and she knew that that was an acceptable way to support me. And I ended up having a C-section for my second baby. And it was a completely different experience. That's the thing. It's like, it's not, oh, I have to go totally home birth, midwife, or I have to do this other thing. No, we deserve to have all the things, everything. We deserve to have our traditional methods that are now coming up. We deserve to have all the science. We deserve to have the hospital, or we deserve to have home, and we deserve it to be our choice, because nobody cares more about the health and well-being of our babies more than us. And we'll always make the right choices. Nobody else cares more than we do.
Yeah. Lydia, go ahead. I'm sorry, Angie or Gwen. Were you getting ready to say?
I'm just over. There is just so much I would love to say. So, I mean, what you just described is the norm of our work. The norm of our work is that we get it, and we see these kinds of experiences unfolding before us all the time. And one of the pleasures of us doing the work of Black Infant Health is that we can be that voice sometimes that women will never have, or won't even think that they have the ability to have, because they've never had it before. And even the family dynamic, when Angie talks about, and when Lydia talks about, we talk about everything. We talk about everything. And the reason for that is because this program has been centered around trying to do a couple of things. we try to elevate. First of all, we try to acknowledge what are the risks, that Black women are facing. And then we try to lower those risks. We try to find ways to make sure that whether it's coming from inside the family or outside the family, we address the risk. Then we try to do something called lift them up by providing them as much support as they need to bring down the risks, and then ensure that they have a sort of a balance to their experience of pregnancy and just life. Because it's not just about being pregnant. Black Infant Health is not just a program for pregnancy. Black Infant Health is a program that gets you ready for pregnancy, that makes sure after pregnancy you're okay. So it's a life, we actually have something called a life plan. So women have to be, when they come through the program, they have to be ready to leave that program and live life. So we give them 3 opportunities to develop a plan. How are you going to deal with your finances? You know, this is after the baby. The baby is one aspect of it and of the huge. How are you going to deal with your personal relationship? How are you going to deal with moving forward in things that we're teaching you here every single week? How are you going to apply that yourself when you leave here? So it encompasses so much. It literally is a social support and empowerment model. So I am so proud of us being the Black women that we are in this space today, and hearing from these moms. I'm a mom. I was delivered by a midwife. My mama didn't play that. Even back then, it may have been because she didn't have the resources. But I used to kind of be embarrassed of that when I was a kid. Like, oh my God, everybody else was. My mom said, no. You don't understand. You had a midwife, and that meant you had the best treatment that any baby could have had at the time. And this was way back in the 60s. And so I would say that experience today is not something we should easily forget. We should learn from our ancestors. We should be taking from the things that we know we had to do. If we're talking about it today, imagine it in the 60s.
Yeah.
My mother didn't see the inside of a hospital because she didn't have that as her privilege. Today, whereas we might look at it as a privilege, it might not be so much when you consider the absolute need that women have to feel like they matter. That's what it comes down to. Black Infant Health is helping to facilitate that. And we go all the way.
And I just wanted to add too, is that every week we have them make a goal for the next week. And so this helps our women to really understand the importance of goal setting, but it also helps them to feel accomplished because we do it in front of the whole group. And everybody gets to hear and cheer on someone when they make their goal. And we still acknowledge and cheer on people even when we don't, because what we want to do is learn from what maybe held them back from making that goal. So it's never about, criticism. It's always about, like Gwen was saying, how can we lift up our Black moms, and therefore we know that we're lifting up our Black babies. And that's the key.
So I want to wrap it up by asking this question to each of you. Angie, what do you think pregnant women need most going into childbirth?
Oh my gosh, that is.
You got to give me one thing. I know that's hard.
All right. The first thing that comes to my mind is unconditional love from all systems around her and around the baby.
It's interesting how something so non-tangible means so much. We put a lot of stock into the things that we have. We buy these. I have a friend who has a Mercedes-Benz stroller. I didn't even know that they made Mercedes-Benz strollers. It's interesting how we put so much into the things, the cute little Air Jordan sneakers for our baby. When you say it's the love that is endless. It's the love that matters the most. Gwendolyn, what do you say?
I say the phrase that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I'm echoing Angie. They need love and they need respect. I think they need to be prioritized. Black women need to be prioritized in the hospital setting and in the prenatal care setting. That's what I know that they need. They need to be put first.
Yes.
Put first.
Absolutely.
Lydia.
Unapologetically.
Lydia, what do you got for us?
I think options. Just having the opportunity to live out who you are. Give me the option to do as I please. That speaks to me. Give me the option. I think that's it.
Love, care, options. Tatiana.
I'm gonna echo a lot of what's been said. I'm gonna put the word radical in it, like a type of radical love, a type of radical care. That sounds like a feeling, but it really is the actions. It's all these actions, like the definition of this love and this care and these options are all of these actions, actionable things. It's manifesting that love into choice, into listening, into ways of interacting. So yeah.
I like that. You have to be radical about your love. You have to be radical about your care. And you have to be radical about the options that are laid before you. Y'all so good. Oh, y'all good. It don't get no better than that.
Aren't we radical in the way that we treat our babies? But aren't we radical in the way that we love our babies? There's nothing
more radical than a mother's love.
Yes, there's nothing. You don't say, look, I'm off the clock now, and you crying too much tonight, so I have to go home. Like what? No, you're there.
You're right there crying with them. Like,
yes,
okay.
So Tatiana, before we get out of here, you want to talk about the forthcoming documentary, the name of it, or where you are in that?
Yes. The documentary, I did an op-ed for Essence called Birthright, and the documentary is called Birthright, the Quilt, and we're about a third of the way through filming it. It's been an extraordinary journey of just donations and love gifts, donations of time, of space, of energy, and we're going to be putting out a GoFundMe pretty soon. It really is, it's for the community. I have a sister who works in healthcare also, and so many community groups have helped in making this and speaking with us. I just want, like I said, I want us to have all the things, and that includes information, education, and raising the cultural understanding overall of what is really going on. And like you said in your intro, Tammy Mac, that there are answers, and Black women need to be listened to. There are experts and advocates and people who have been doing this work on the ground, and they know what works. So I hope this film just lifts that cultural understanding across the board, that it helps us, and and look out for our GoFundMe, because it's for us, and it's by a few of us. It's me.
It's like the Black Infant Health Program. It's for us, by us. I'm loving every minute of it. I'm loving it. Gwendolyn, thank you so much. Tatiana, Lydia, and Angie, thank you so much for being a part of this KJLH Women's Health Expo panel on Black infant health. I'm sure many women learned a lot, and I'm sure they will benefit from the story. So I thank you. And I thank you to all our KJLH viewers and listeners out there for being a part of the 2021 Women's Health Expo. I'm Tammy Mac. I'll see y'all, or y'all hear me on the radio. Okay. Bye, y'all.
The Radio Free 102.3 KJLH 21st Annual Women's Health Expo, brought to you virtually by the City of Long Beach and Fresno County Black Infant Health Program.